Hi guys, my name's Al Shields, welcome to the channel. If you're interested in putting together a small pedal board, or maybe you're building your first pedal board, or maybe you're just downsizing your existing rig for some fly dates, there are some pitfalls to avoid and some things to take into consideration regarding powering, patch cables, the size of the board, spacing of the pedals and the layout. I need to put together a small pedal board today for some shows that I've got coming up at the weekend, and I figured I'd make a video just to show you my approach, and maybe you'll learn some tips and tricks to building your own small pedal board. So let's get to it. So before I talk about the actual pedals and setting everything up, I'm going to talk a little bit about power for these smaller pedal boards. These Pedaltrain Metros have very small feet. Basically, it sits flat on the floor. It's not tilted up like some of the bigger pedal trains are. So you need to think about fitting a power supply underneath these boards that's going to fit and isn't going to stick up past the height of these feet. Now, there's actually a few options since these boards started hitting the market, along with the Pedaltrain Nano series. So this is the Strymon O-High, and the reason I like this is it's got loads of power. So each of these 5 outputs runs 500 milliamps, but 2 of them are switchable between 9 volts, 12 volts and 18 volts. So if you've got a big digital pedal that needs a little bit more voltage, you can do it all off the same power supply, and you don't need to bring extra plugs for different pedals. It fits under here nicely. It does come with a template that allows you to screw it, actually bolt it to the bottom of the pedal board, but I just use cable ties for ease. This also comes with this transformer box, which also sits nicely underneath there, and there's a cable to attach the two. But there's a whole bunch of options. This is a Strymon O-High R30. Now the regular O-High doesn't fit because it's a lot taller than this, but they also do the Zoomer R300, which is a little bit bigger box, and it's basically got this built in, but it's a bit more expensive. Pedaltrain actually have their own power supplies that will fit underneath this. I think they're called the Pedaltrain Spark, and they also have a rechargeable one called the Volto, which fits nicely underneath these. But there's a whole bunch of options, but I would say do your homework to make sure that they're actually narrow enough to sit under here without touching the floor when you put the pedal board down. Okay, so you've got your pedal board and you're ready to start mounting your pedals. This is the Pedaltrain Metro 16. I did some research online, and for the size of the pedals, or the amount of pedals that I need to use, I find this would be best. Now, if you go on something like the Pedaltrain website, you can look at the specifications and you can get measurements for all the pedal trains that they make. Or I think they've actually got a website, I think it's theirs, it's called Pedalboard Planner, and you can actually go on and it's got a virtual pedalboard builder on there, so you can get an idea of the kind of sizes of board that you would need. I'm going to show you the pedals that I'm using and try and work out the best way to get them on this board. So first off, I'm going to start at this far end with this guy. So this is the Fender Treverb. This is a reverb and delay with a tap function, sorry, reverb and tremolo even, with a tap function for the tremolo. But it's one of the bigger ones that's going on the board. So I'm going to put it right at the very far end here. Keep it out of the way. It's always last in my chain. Next, I've got the TC Electronic Profit Delay. Very cheap but cheerful digital delay, but I switch this on and off a lot, so I want this kind of along the front somewhere. Now the good thing about these is that the jack is on the top for the output, so I can put it right up against the bottom of the Treverb, and it sits nice and flush with the rest of the pedal board. Now, when you watch other people building their pedal boards on YouTube, you will see that sometimes they'll take their patch cables and they'll have, if they're using solderless ends, they'll just plug a solderless end into all the jacks, and that lets them kind of judge sizes. But I use these pancake jacks, and I generally just try and leave enough space to fit those in. They don't need a huge amount, they're pretty small. For these gigs that I'm going to be doing, basically it's a festival over a weekend, and we're playing about 4 or 5 shows over the weekend, and some of them there's not going to be an amplifier, which kind of sucks, and I can't fly with an amp, so I have to find other solutions. Now, this is what I'm using. Now, you'll have seen this as the Joyo American Sound or the Harley Benton American Sound. This one is Amun. They're all the same pedal. They come out of the same place, and they just get badged with different brands before they ship. It's a Fender voiced amp sim, and it's got cab sim as well, which means it's useful for going direct to a recording interface or plugging straight into a PA system. And the good thing about the cab sim is that it works even if you run other pedals after it in the chain. So this is going to go round about here. Running into that, this is the Wampler Tweed 57, and it is the finest guitar pedal that anyone has ever made, ever. You will never find, in my opinion, a better overdrive pedal than this. It's my Desert Island pedal. This video is not sponsored by Wampler, this is now discontinued, but if you can find one, they're well worth looking into. I absolutely love this thing. And this goes into the amp sim, so I'm going to position that somewhere around about here. Now I'm also thinking about orientation at this point because I need my patch cables to run. Yeah, I think I'm going to have it round this way. Now before that, I'm going to put a little gain boost. Normally for a gain boost in front of my overdrive, I would just use the volume knob on my guitar, but the guitar that I'm using for these gigs doesn't have a treble bleed built into its volume circuit, so it loses a lot of top end, so I'd rather just keep the volume on the guitar at 10 and use this to crank the volume going into this for a little bit of overdrive, because I run this fairly clean with just a very small amount of grip, but this can give it a nice boost. So this is going to go in front of that, roughly there I reckon. Next up, I've got this. This is the Keeley Aria. Now, the reason I bought this was because it's got the Keeley Compressor Plus on the right-hand side, and that's the one that I use most. That's almost always on. It's also got a drive section. It's got a low gain and a high gain setting, which I never really use. It's super mid-rangey and isn't really much use for me with the music that I play at the moment. Having this side was just an little extra bonus, but I don't really use it that much. And this will go basically roughly here. And then lastly, or firstly, first in the chain at least, is the most important pedal of all, the tuner pedal. This is the Ibanez Big Mini. It's nice and bright, does the job. It's not buffered, because I know someone out there is going to say in the comments, oh, you've left out, you need a buffer. I don't run so many cables that I really notice the difference when I use a buffer, but on a bigger board, I would be using a Boss tuner, which is buffered. This is purely out of necessity for space-saving reasons. And that's going to go right there. So I'll be running guitar into tuner, tuner into compressor, compressor into boost, boost into drive, drive into amp sim into delay, delay into reverb and tremolo. So yeah, so that's it. So obviously you need to think about wiring this up. There are millions of solderless patch cable kits out there. Personally, I've had a bit of bad luck with them in the past. I also used to use these Planet Waves molded patch cables, but numerous times they've failed on me. So I decided to move away from those. For small boards, these can be useful as well. These are EBS flat patch cables, you know, very low profile, you can see that there. Really handy if you're stuck for space in between pedals. Like there, that would be useful, but I'm not going to use these. I use these Mogami soldered patch cables. These are about 25 quid a pack for a pack of 6 on Amazon, and I'll link to these in the description below the video. But I use these. They come in 6-inch, 9-inch and 12-inch variations, and they've lasted me ages. I've pulled these in and out of pedal boards for months and months now, and never had any issues. So this is what I'm going to be using. Alright, so here you can see the power supply is actually mounted under the board now. This cable is hanging loose at the moment, but I've got some little kind of cable tie mounts that will stick underneath the pedal board to hold everything in place once it's all cabled up. But that's the Strymon Ojai R30 in place. It's not going anywhere. Obviously the cable ties show on the top of the board, but that shouldn't really cause an issue with mounting the pedals. So let's flip this bad boy over, get these pedals back on the board. So I've stopped the hyperlapse just to talk a little bit about wiring up the power, because the patch cables all went in really easily. and everything fitted together nicely enough. And you always end up with a little bit of slack here and there depending on the cables that you're using. If you're using solderless patch cables, then you can cut everything to size. But everything seemed to go in fine. The frustration and the learning for this particular pedal board comes from powering it. So as I mentioned before, there's 5 outputs on the Strymon Oh-Hi. I've used 4 of those for 4 pedals, and then the other 3 pedals I'm just going to use as a daisy chain, because this isn't always on and this isn't always on. So it's okay for these pedals to share a bit of power, because I only use really the compressor on this pedal. This is occasional and this is occasional. So I have, I think it's a 5-way daisy chain that I'm trying to use on this board. But you end up with all this mess underneath. And on a bigger board, you'll see it online, it's easy and it's fun to try really hard to make it all look super neat and lovely underneath. But right now, unfortunately, it just won't be the prettiest underneath. But yeah, that's something to take into consideration. If you are going to daisy chain any of your pedals from the power supply, then make sure you've either got enough outputs on your daisy chain to do that, and also if you know exactly how many you're going to be daisy chaining, see if you can get one of these that only has 2 or 3 or 4 or however many you need, so that you're not dealing with all the spare slack once you've finished building your pedal board. Okay, so this is pretty much finished now. This particular board has been a little bit of a learning experience for me. I hadn't used the Metro 16 to make a pedal board before, and I've learned that the spacing, like the kind of areas underneath the board, weren't quite as big as I had hoped for. Everything fits, but as you can see, cable management wise, I've just had to make do. It's not the tidiest of things, but once I've done a couple of gigs with this, I might kind of come back to it and kind of rework it a little bit, maybe even try a different power supply that orients differently, something that gets rid of the transformer box as well. But overall, I'm pretty happy. This is going to get the job done for me. So I'm going to plug it in through an amp and we can see how it sounds. So thanks very much for watching the video, guys. I will link to some of the products that I've mentioned in the description below. Feel free to hit the subscribe button as well, because I will be uploading more in the future. And if you want to keep up to date with that, you should hit the little bell to receive notifications when those videos go live. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you later.